All right, we are excited to have Kerri and Samantha from Arundel County Public Schools with us this evening. I have seen them present in the past, and it's always pretty awesome. So I appreciate them sharing with everyone tonight. And I will pass it over to Kerri and Sam. Woo, 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 woo.
Thank you, Scott. Yes, we're excited to be here, and thank you for our participants who are here with us tonight for designing asynchronous snow day lessons. So my name is Samantha Wilkinson. I'm using my maiden name. Either will work. And I'm from Anne Arundel County Public Schools, along with my co-host.
I'm Kerri Lambert. I am also a teacher specialist for AACPS. Both Sam and I are from the Office of Instructional Technology, and we do primarily work with the elementary schools in our district. But we're excited to be here. We love Wixie.
Absolutely. So, Kerri, if you could go to the next one, a little bit about who we are in terms of our district. Anne Arundel County Public Schools has over 6,000 teachers, and we serve a little bit over 85,000 students. And as Kerri said, we both kind of team up to support our over 80 elementary schools. And as one of the 40th largest school districts in the US, we are talking about quite a few people who are impacted when we do have weather or emergency situations. And so while it does not snow too often here in Maryland, when it does, there are a lot of frantic teachers and students, especially when we have those surprise flurries that end up closing our schools. So not to mention, with such an expansive county, there are also times that our school shuts down for other emergencies and have to launch into asynchronous learning that are not weather related. So just a couple of weeks ago, we had 7 schools closed down because of a water outage. And we've had power issues and traffic delays and lots of other reasons to close. So we're also very lucky that in our district, we have 1-to-1 Chromebook to student ratio as a result of the pandemic and switching to virtual learning in the spring of 2020. So all of our students have their own device. And in fact, in grades K through 2, they actually have a device at home and one at school. And just for your background, we also utilize D2L's Brightspace as our learning management system. So we're always cognizant of how our applications and our digital activities will integrate with that platform. So a little bit about the genesis of this project, as we're calling it. Last year in the state of Maryland, our districts were able to have 8 virtual instruction snow days, and 3 of those were allowed to be asynchronous virtual learning days. So students would be learning without the guidance of their teacher. We're also relatively new to our LMS at that point, and a lot of our elementary teachers were having trouble navigating that. So basically, we wanted to try and come up with something that would be as seamless and easy to use for teachers as well as our students. Pair this with, we also have expanded pre-K programs, so a lot of little learners that we knew would be learning online. And all of that together kind of resulted in some anxious teachers and kind of worrying about being prepared in the case that they went virtual in an asynchronous manner and having the tools that they needed in order to have students still get some learning done at home. So we also knew that we wanted to help them to create some sort of model that they could also use, but that they can also use as inspiration to create their own lesson plans. And we really wanted it to be a comprehensive type of lesson package. So we wanted it to be ready to use, and we were really hoping to have it all in one central spot so that students didn't have to click into, one of our 12 different applications. So, of course, we were thinking, well, which application can we use for this? And obviously, we chose Wixie. It was a no-brainer for us, actually. We knew that our students, all of them will have some background because Wixie is incorporated into our library media curriculum as well at all grade levels. So even if they hadn't used Wixie with their classroom teacher, they at least had been exposed to it before. We know that Wixie is extremely user-friendly, even for our littlest learners, our pre-K3 and pre-K4 students. And we love how intuitive it is with the icon-based tools and a lot of those paint features. Mostly, though, we love Wixie because of its accessibility features. So being able to read the text within Wixie, students being able to use speech to text to respond to prompts. We also love that we could easily create different types of responses for students, so they could respond with video or audio. We could do drag and drop activities. And we also knew that we were going to have some supplemental resources, reading, little excerpts and articles in order to make this a comprehensive day of learning. So we wanted to be able to embed some of our other resources within Wixie, and it allowed us to do that beautifully. We also loved that teachers could edit and make changes for whatever they wanted to change and modify. And we liked that we could do all of the day's subjects in one comprehensive package in one spot. And then, of course, for teachers, they can check in at any point, although it is asynchronous. Some of our teachers like to check in on the progress or even come back later and look at it. And then finally, it's just a really fun and creative platform. So for us, we were like, let's do it. So Kerri's going to take you into our beginning steps once we kind of picked Wixie.
So when we decided that we were going to do this project, obviously it was going to be quite an undertaking. So we decided, again, doing this at the district level, that for our purposes, we need to kind of group things together. And so it made sense for us to pair pre-K and K together, first and second grade together, and then grades 3 through 5. So by doing that, we were like, okay, that made it a little bit more manageable. That was only 9 lessons then that we were doing, because we decided that we were going to do 3 per each of those bands. Then it was like, okay, well, what are we actually going to teach in these lessons? What is it that we need our students to be learning? So as everything else, we always start with our standards. So we took a look at the standards. And what we decided was, because we didn't know when in the school year this was going to be happening, we said, okay, let's look at the first half of the current year. And then let's look at, in the case of the older grades, let's look at the standards that we cover in the second half of the prior year. So we still then had sort of a whole year that we could work with within those standards. We also thought about the things that we know that students always need more help with. They always need more help with things like main idea and details, sequencing of events, excuse me, identifying parts of the character or parts of a story, summarizing, always a huge issue in the intermediate grades. So we knew that those were going to be some topics in terms of literacy that we could easily implement because they've had that, it's going to be scaffolded throughout the years. So then it was like, okay, well, what are our themes going to be? What do we want to have this work around? So this is where we really started to dive into the template galleries and the curriculum options that are already built in within Wixie. And this was it was so inspirational and so much of a treasure trove. The Wixie team has done such a great job of putting things together. And so we started, there's all this transportation things. There's all of these, weather-related things. The mitten, the color monster came out as something that we could use with students. Even some things with the math. We can do some area and perimeter. Because, we like to work smarter, not harder. And so having a lot of those templates already ready to go for us, or that maybe just need a little bit of tweaking, really made the process a lot simpler and easier for us. In terms of themes, we love a good theme. We are elementary school teachers, so we do love a good theme. Certainly helps it make it more engaging. And so we decided, and I'll go out here and show you here in just a second, of the 3, even though we're calling them snow day lessons, we really only wanted one to focus on a winter type scenario, because as Sam says, we have had schools, we just had a group, a couple of weeks ago, have to shut down and go virtual. And so we didn't want everything to be snow related. So coming up with those activities and themes, again, from what we found within Wixie itself, but then also looking at our other supplemental materials that we have. We're very fortunate in AACPS. We have a lot of things available to us. So we have things like Scholastic Literacy Pro, Discovery Education. We have quite a few different databases that we were able to pull from as well. So what we ended up with, and I will go out to our site here. And Sam has dropped that.
Yep.
Yeah, has dropped the link there so you can see that. So these are what we ended up with. So again, there's a winter one for each one. We can't not do a snow day one after all, but we opted for topics that we thought would be very engaging for our students. So we have the mitten, we did transportation. We have something there with our feelings and emotions, which is actually based on the color monster. What kid doesn't love a good dinosaur activity? So we threw that one in for second grade. And then I have to give a shout out to my own children for our superhero theme. They were very much obsessed, and still actually are, with the Avengers. So that kind of provided some inspiration for the superhero one as well. So we just tried to find topics that we thought would be very highly engaging to students, because after all, they are going to be doing these activities on a day where they probably thought they were going to get away with not having to do anything. Let's be real here. So we want it to be something that was going to capture their attention. So with that, then it kind of came down to, at this point, what is it that, we wanted them to do, making sure that they understood what was going to happen within these particular activities. Because as much as we would like to think that our students are going to have an adult home with them or an older sibling home with them to help them, we know that's just not reality. So it was very important to us as we worked through and built these activities that we made them as accessible as possible for our students to do independently, and that they can navigate things independently. And that was another very much a guiding focus for us as we built these 9 lessons. So with that in mind, we really utilize the instruction box. So if you open up any of those particular activities, and for example, I'm just going to go ahead and go into the mitten here. Everyone loves the good mitten. We really worked to make sure that we utilized the instruction box. And so as you go through here, you'll see, particularly here on the front page, we wanted to set it up so the students also knew how Wixie would read aloud to them. So instructions, we liked this too because it was very easy for teachers to be able to go in later and modify these if possible. Because again, we're doing this at the district level. And so we wanted, hey, they can see when the teacher opens it, oh, I can type in there, I can do something. So we have it set so the instructions open on each page when the students enter that page. We also liked that the teachers had the ability, if they wanted to customize this a little bit more for their students, that they could record their own voices being able to do those instructions. We chose not to do that. We didn't want people to not realize that maybe there is already recording and then you have the instructions and then they may not match if they made changes. But it is a nice customization of thing to give it that little bit more personal touch, especially for those asynchronous days. So within those instruction boxes, we also made sure to always include how students should respond. Are you going to use drag and drop? Are you going to use the drawing tool? Are you going to use the audio or video? And as you go through and look at those, you'll see we tried to be very specific in those. To kind of back up how we use those instruction boxes, we also wanted to make sure that on the page itself was very clear. So we tried as much as possible to use the icons. Hopefully you're all familiar. If you go into the image folder here within Wixie itself and go into symbols and icons, there's actually a folder of all of the Wixie symbols, and for both the primary and the intermediate or standard interface. So we put these on the pages where appropriate, and we tried to be as consistent as possible too in terms of where those icons were going to be located on the page. You'll see we did them less and less as we got to the older students because we're giving them the opportunity to respond in multiple ways. It's not as clear cut as maybe with our pre-K and our K little guys where we really focused on drawing and maybe doing some things with the microphone and the audio recording, but just giving them that visual. Again, if they haven't been in Wixie very much, sure, we're telling them in the instructions how we want them to respond, but then they can have that visual to link to the tool as well. So those were really things that we really concentrated on. We also changed the text box default text when appropriate. And again, you'll see this more in the intermediate ones. But we know for students so often that when they come in here, it's like, well, what box am I supposed to type in? Or they delete it by mistake, or they delete the text and they're like, what can we do? So we've tried here, whenever you come in and add that text box within the Wixie page, if you go to edit, you can actually change that from type text here to whatever you want it to say, and it acts the same way. So when they click in that box, it disappears. So they don't have to backspace it because nobody's got time for that. But it still gives them that information. So we might say something like, type the character's name here. Just again, as clear as possible for our students. We don't want them to be frustrated and have the least number of questions as possible. So those were some things that we did on the page itself to make sure that students wouldn't get frustrated. When it came to building the activities themselves, again, with that theme of less frustration for our students, we really tried to keep our fonts simple and minimal so they weren't distracting, easy to read. We used the bubble tool to really emphasize the text. We didn't necessarily use the speech bubbles or the thought bubbles, but we really used a lot of the square options. So we would click into a lot of those and come over here to our bubble. and then just go ahead and choose this basic square, or even just the sort of like slight banner one if wanted. That also made it easier for us. We were working on these jointly in different times, so we knew, hey, we didn't have to keep there and keep fiddling with the text to make it fit within the box. It would automatically change for us. It was also very easy for us to link things, or not link things, lock things on the page. It took me about probably I was probably on like the fourth one of these activities when we were building it, when it was like, well, why don't you just go in and change your default text? So pro tip there, I kind of learned that one the hard way. Every time I was going in, I was highlighting my text, changing my text, and changing the font size and all of that. I was like, well, you can do that under your settings, Kerri. And so if you decide to do something like this, or even anything, and you're always using the same font, go ahead and make that change up under your settings to change your default text. It will save you quite a bit of time. I can definitely speak to that. The other thing, when we were building, we were very purposeful in making sure that our format followed the same, not just the same thing from all of these lessons, but also kind of a typical day. So all of our lessons start with some kind of engagement or hook piece. We built in the literacy for the most part, came next. There's one or two where the science just seemed to fit in there a little bit better. But then we went to literacy, and then we always included a brain break as well. And we had a lot of fun finding different kind of brain breaks. If you go and we used some things like YouTube videos. We also used just a lot of GIFs. So a lot of the snow ones, they're acting out different motions. Again, shout out to my own children for the superhero ones. They brainstormed so many different superhero brain breaks that the students could act out, that I think we ended up with 2 or 3 different brain breaks in that particular lesson. So we included that. We then went to math. Part of the other reason for including math towards the end was simply the theme had been very much established at that point, so we could be a little bit more flexible with what we were doing. And then we always ended with some kind of reflection, just so the teachers would have an idea, hey, how did you like this lesson? So we made sure to include that as well.
We really we also tried to include a little bit of social emotional activities,
Yes.
particularly for our little guys. We thought that was important on a day where they're not going to be with all their friends, that they would be able to explore some of those concepts.
Absolutely. And thank you, Sam, for bringing that up. We all of the lessons include math. All of them include some piece of literacy. And then from there, we decided to include one other content area. And it was either science, social studies, or we opted for that social emotional component. We just felt that was very much typical of a regular day for us. And so we wanted this to mirror. It might not be as long as what they would have in a regular day, but still have that sense of familiarity and routine, which we know students actually really do thrive on. They might fight it, but they do thrive on it.
And in speaking of building, that also kind of gave, we hope, teachers inspiration for how they can create their own lessons.
Absolutely.
So even if they didn't use the ones that we had provided, they could at least get some ideas, even pull a few pages.
And that goes back to, you'll see as you go through some of these lessons, again, we want it to be easy for our students. We want it to be easy for our teachers. And that idea of the standards and kind of going across, we knew that we were going to have to provide some options. And so you'll see as you go through here, particularly, it's most evident when you look at the math, although we do have it for the literacy piece as well. What we're going to do in pre-K is going to be very different even from what we do in kindergarten. There's certainly a range with our, from 3rd grade up to 5th grade. So the teachers, we can come in here and they can simply delete the slides that they don't want to use. So even though we have those particular elements, it might be slightly different standards that the teacher can choose from, based on the grade level that they're going to be working with. And all I have to do is literally come in and delete the slides they don't want before pushing this out to their students. So we were very mindful of that as well. Again, a little bit more with the with math in that aspect, because those standards definitely have a much broader range, if you will, than maybe something with the literacy piece.
Yeah. And some of our teachers said, choose an activity, page 15 or page 16. So it's nice that they gave student choice as well.
And
go ahead,
you're
Kerri.
doing this page. I'm sorry. You're right. Nope,
you're on a roll. Yeah.
I'm on a roll.
We're fighting each other. We had so much fun with these. So in terms of some other kind of tips and tricks and an activity setup, we really try to use this default sticker library, setting a default folder when it was appropriate. We do also know, though, that when you create that folder that's locked, so that only the students can only get to certain images, that is for the whole entire project. So it didn't work for every one of these, but when appropriate, we tried to do that. We
Particularly
also,
for our younger students, because we know
yeah,
like they aren't going to be able to search. So we really made sure that if there was one activity, they were definitely going to need a folder of stickers. For example, if, in the case of the mitten,
mhm,
it's going to take them to the sticker library that they need for the very first activity that they have on here. But all of the other pages are going to be well, I'm seeing Lindy's stuff going there. I absolutely love those. Yes, that would be great. Could we have different image libraries for each page?
that
That'd be
would be
fantastic.
great.
So we were very purposeful in that as well. So those are the ones that we need for this particular activity. So
Yeah.
then for the other pages, we made sure to include the graphics that they needed, the images that they need directly on the page itself.
Absolutely. And we really tried to utilize the lock, protect, scale, and clone options, especially for our headers and titles. And you saw that we have some, charts and grids and stuff. We didn't want any of that moving, especially for our little guys. And especially since a lot of our students are just using that trackpad mouse, we wanted to make sure that there was as little frustration as possible. So we locked and protected as much as we could. And if we did do some drag and drops, we also protected the image and turned off that scaling so it would prevent it from being misshapen. The other thing that we did is we made sure that we provided any hyperlinks both on the page of the project itself and also in the instructions. So we really wanted to put them in both spots so they didn't miss it and they're not thinking, what am I supposed to do on this page? And that was really important to us that we could do that in Wixie, and that hyperlinking was super easy. We did link out for activities that we couldn't embed, but that was rare. And Kerri is showing something there for you. Yeah.
This was an example of what we did there. So these, if they select on the headphones, takes them out directly to Discovery Ed. Because we work with ClassLink, we have that single sign-on, so the students can select that. It's going to take them directly to the song and they can listen to it. But then we also put that link here within the directions, or excuse me, the instructions box as well. So 2 options depending on what they need to do.
Yeah. And in a few cases, we tried to reduce that reading fatigue by embedding videos. And in some cases also, those were for our read aloud stories for our little guys. We also did some uploading of PDFs, which we know Wixie does beautifully, particularly one of our lessons that's off the top of my head. It was a mystery science video clip, and they had some great matching worksheets, and we thought these are awesome. Let's just upload them right in. And of course, we made notations that the students were to use the text boxes and the paint tools in order to fill that out. But it allowed us to save some time in terms of, there it is right there, recreating this whole chart. And we just used the upload PDF option, which was really nice for us. And this is also something consistent that our students are used to because they use mystery science during science throughout pre-K through 5. I think that was everything for that. I mean, Kerri, anything you want to add?
I just want, you'll see as you go through, and as we were building the activities, we really tried to provide a variety of activities. It's not, everything's not all typing. In fact, you'll find there's actually very little typing that is required. We know typing can be such a frustrating skill for students, and quite frankly, why does everything have to be typed out for them? Or why do they have to type all of their thoughts out? So we really encourage the use of the drawing, the image libraries. We have almost everything that requires some type of explanation or response. You can do a video, or you can do the audio recording. Not that they can't type, we want them to have that opportunity as well. So that's certainly an option, but giving them that student choice, that student agency to choose what works best for them, we thought was also going to help them stay engaged in these activities and be more willing to complete them than just kind of give up halfway through.
Yeah. Okay. And certainly a teacher could use these for assessment purposes, but that wasn't really our focal point. It was more so building those digital literacy skills, having fun, and getting to practice some of those skills or upcoming skills. So then, of course, we had to spread the word to everybody because we thought they were great. We knew they were great. So one of the things that we did, and you'll see on our site that Kerri showed earlier, is that along with every one of our Wixie files, we also included some teacher directions. And Kerri, do you happen to have that open?
I can pull. Is there one in
particular? And I'll drop it in the link too. Yeah, I just have the superhero one right here off the top of my.
Okay.
So it's in the chat for you guys to look at as well. But we wanted to have sort of like a one-pager. It ended up being a little bit more than that, but a little snapshot of what the teachers were expected to do, or if they were new to Wixie, how they could easily modify and get this right into the learning management system. So at the very beginning there, we just have a little blurb about how this lesson was designed. We also made sure to note that students don't have to complete all of it and that you do have the option to delete. And we also did a few tips in there, like making sure that they hit the play button when they're trying to hear the directions and things like that. That next section, we have how to use it. So we broke down the different content areas there and how teachers can customize. We also made sure that we included some of the Wixie tutorials from our website, but also from YouTube from Wixie. As you scroll down a little bit more, you'll see that we also made sure that for each slide, we included the content standard that we were covering. And we also included the ISTE standards, which mirror our Maryland Digital Learning Standards as well. So a really nice snapshot for teachers. They can kind of quickly go in and see, and you'll notice on this one, we had a range of content standards for 3 through 5, especially in that math section, so they can pick and choose what works for them.
And you'll see here, because I know this popped up as just a question in the chat, in terms of for our students or the parents who may not be familiar with Wixie, here on the teacher page, we have linked to our student intro page. We have a whole website that we have fully developed that has how to use not just Wixie, all of our applications. And so we encourage our teachers, if they're going to be using these with their students, to make sure when they post this in the LMS that they also post those directions there if it's not something that the students are 100% comfortable with.
Yeah, and we found that for the most part, Wixie is pretty intuitive. So that wasn't usually a big problem. Getting into the LMS and getting to Wixie, that sometimes was where they needed some help. We also posted these on our digital takeout website, which I did share in the link. That's where they're all stored. And we're happy to say that they were a hit. We've had over 4,800 views, and Kerri put in there by over 2,598 users. So most of our elementary teachers are utilizing these. We, of course, also blasted it on social media. Our e-coaches who are stationed at every single school were made aware and told to pass this information out. Many of them did trainings in person. Kerri and I also did some trainings in person. We also conducted a couple of webinars just like this, and we did record those, and they are available on YouTube. So we really tried to make sure everyone knew about these. And again, we really hoped that it was a launch point for them to feel confident in creating some of their own lesson packages. And I think that has been pretty successful. We already have some great ideas, Kerri, right, for this next round?
We already have, because we know, we've only got 3 up there. And we actually ended up not having asynchronous any snow days last year.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So we had a little bit of some buffer space to get some done another round. But yes, we were thinking of brown bear. So Lindy, can that be another request? You've got hungry caterpillar. Can we get some graphics for brown bear? Space was one that came up. Sound waves was actually something we thought about for our upper students. We happen to know that that is a standard that they struggle with on our science testing. And so we thought maybe something like that would be a good review to have as a snow day activity as well.
We really tried to keep it pretty generic too, gender neutral and kind of big topics that everybody could attach to in some way.
Yeah. Another question was, how does this get sent out? It was sent out by our district as well when they first pushed out the VID instructions, as they call it, virtual instruction days, with what teachers were going to be required to have. This was linked as a resource. They are not, our teachers are not required to use these. They are optional. They are for emergency purposes, but certainly, they're done. Let's go for it. But that got pushed out, and I will tell you, when we look at the data, you can see the data that got sent out because it completely spiked. I think we had over 1,000 views on that page alone on that day.
Of course, it was right in January too, right, Kerri? Right before weather.
Yes. They're very good. Brown I was ready to go. And so,
nice.
In terms of whether or not these days are going to be made, and in terms of, we don't have any say in that. That's done by the district leadership. In some cases, for example, the water issues that were in one of our clusters a few weeks ago, that was made by the district leadership, and then it was pushed out through parents. Pushed out to parents through our Connect Ed system. And so, there was a lot. There's a lot of communication, and so we really try to get this out as much as we can. And yes, we can 100% share the presentation.
Yeah, I will also say that something that's nice about our LMS is that teachers were able to upload these, post them, if you will, and hide them so that they were literally ready to go with the click of a button. So they uploaded the Wixie file, they made all the changes they wanted to make, and they were in there. And this year we actually had some schools that did that as part of their prep at the, during that teacher week, so that they didn't have to worry about it later on, that they have that security of knowing I have 3 asynchronous lesson plans ready to go, and I literally just have to toggle it to visible. So that was a really nice feature in terms of reducing anxiety.
Absolutely.
We're also going to include the talkies in our next batch because we're super excited about the talkies.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Talkies are awesome. Are there any?
So thank you guys so much. We're right at 7:30, Kerri. Wow, we fit it all in perfectly.
Oh, we're perfect. All right. But if there's any questions, we're certainly happy to take any questions from those of you that you are.
Absolutely.
So by all means, again, please take a moment, go through. All of those are available to you on that website. It is open, so you can make a copy and do your own. Just know that some things are kind of behind our firewalls. So like if you don't have Discovery, those links aren't going to work for you. Same for Scholastic Literacy Pro, but you can certainly swap those things out for things that your district has available to you. Okay.
Thank you guys for coming.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate it. Hi, Debbie.
Hey, Debbie. Our #1 fan.
Absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording so that way we can all say hello and thank you. But hold on one second.